Tell a story of real destruction. You know, you put your belongings in a storage unit, you hope they're going to be okay. This is the last thing you want to hear, but there was a big storage facility where fire struck. We're going to be live with our Irene Snyder coming up in just a minute or two, but I'm going to take you live right now to Washington, D.C. Elon Musk has just stood up. The cabinet meeting is underway. President Trump has been speaking, and Elon Musk has been as well. He says that there's great respect among the cabinet members for the man who's leading the cost cutting effort of Doge. Let's listen in for just a minute since we do have it coming in live.
65 or so percent of the people from environmental. And we're going to speed up the process too at the same time. You had a lot of people that weren't doing their job, they were just obstructionists, and a lot of people that didn't exist, I guess, Lee, too. You found a lot of empty spots, and the people weren't there. They didn't exist. I think education is going to be one of those. You go around Washington, you see all these buildings with Department of Education. We want to move education back to the states where it belongs. Iowa should have education. Indiana should run their own education. You're going to see education go way up. Right now, we're ranked at the very bottom of the list, but we're at the top of the list in one thing: the cost per pupil. We spend more money per pupil than any other country in the world, and yet it's Denmark and Norway, Sweden, and I hate to say this, and you know, we're going to get along very well with China, but it's a competitor. They're at the top of the list. They're among the top 10 usually, and they're a very big country, so we can't use that as an excuse, right? Because we're a very
All right, we are going to continue to follow as the morning goes on. In fact, I think you should probably hear amongst the first things the president had to say. We're going to cover that for you in just a minute, but I know there's great interest on this story of that fire that broke out. And boy, it seems like it was really devastating up in the north part of the city. Our Irene Snyder, you were out there all morning, Irene. What'd you learn?
Yeah, Ron, we were out there since around 4 o'clock this morning. Well, first of all, it's 50 to 75 affected units. When we first got the release from officials, they told us, okay, you know, there's a storage unit that we found on fire, and that was what we initially had when we got out there. But then when they sent out more information, there were 50 to 75 affected units. They didn't tell us how it started, so we don't know if it started just in one storage unit or somewhere nearby. But that's a lot of it. You can imagine they didn't give us the extent of the damage inside those units, but you can imagine it's pretty a lot of damage given if you're looking at some of the video of the fire. It was just so many flames and just plumes of smoke coming out of those storage units this morning. Was around North 19th Avenue around 1:30 this morning. Flames coming from multiple units. What they found, again, ended up being dozens of units. They did have it as a first alarm fire and a major response. We got there and there were dozens of fire trucks out there today, just because of the ability for it to spread from unit to unit, and they tried to get control of the situation as soon as possible. But the good news is no one was hurt. No firefighters were injured, but we were out there for hours this morning. We did not see anybody come in the early morning hours to check on their storage units, except for some worker that came to try and repair some of the damage. But again, don't know the extent of the damage inside those units, but it was 50 to 75 affected units. You can imagine it was a good amount of damage.
Now, do we know if the business itself had a plan in place on how they were going to allow people to come in maybe within the next day or two and see if their unit was affected? I mean, it's Deer Valley 2 self-storage. And you know, you're watching it on the news and you're thinking, "Oh boy, that's where I had my stuff stored." And you want to get some answers. Do they have a plan?
That I'm not sure of. I wasn't able to speak to an owner or representative from the company yet this morning, but I did. The only thing I really saw this morning was they opened the gate. It's a gated area right there. The whole entire area is gated off, so we weren't able to walk in there ourselves. But a worker did come in to, it said roof repair on the truck, and that was
Oh.
basically all we were able to get as far as anyone there this morning. So no word that any official word from any owners or anything as far as what the advice is. I'll keep checking throughout the day and see if they have anything that they would post or release more information. But again, it's a gated area, and it looked like workers were starting to come in for the day. So I'm not sure what protocols were in that respect, but
All right.
definitely something good for people to check out if they have units there.
All right. Great reporting today, Irene. We sure appreciate you.
Thank you, Ron.
Okay. Well, Syleste joins as well. And you know,
Good morning,
Syleste,
Ron.
I was just thinking, I don't know if you've put things in a storage unit. For us, we've done it over the years. Sometimes it's furniture, but sometimes it's like old photos, mementos that you can
Yeah.
never get back.
Family heirlooms.
Right?
And it was interesting that they weren't just it wasn't like just a handful of storage units. They wanted to open up a bunch of them to make sure
Yeah.
there wasn't more damage.
Right.
Because when you think about it, I heard this from a firefighter one time that at one of the fire scenes, he said the fire may take place in one apartment in the apartment building, but there's water damage then to all the rest because they're having to
Oh,
douse it with
yes,
water. Or
right.
there's smoke damage to one of them, even if fire or water didn't touch that unit, there's smoke damage.
Yeah, and I mean, you're thinking, how can it spread so far so quickly when it's basically what you're looking at is concrete and metal, you know, in most of these facilities. But I guess when the fire burns that hot, it can go from unit to unit. So Irene did a great job of covering that story for us this morning. It was also a morning for a chance to reflect, share some stories, and just say thank you to a lot of first responders who were out there on the scene when that horrific crash happened on the US 60. This happened just a little earlier this morning, and we're all familiar with the story by now, seconds between life and death. And so today they gathered out there at Mesa Fire. The whole thing happened on the Superstition Freeway in Mesa. And here's some of what got said.
I was just a few vehicles behind this big collision. When I saw vehicles kind of going all over the place, I activated my lights on my motor, kind of split traffic, got up, and observed what had just transpired. I observed the Nissan pickup truck was on fire and leaning on its side. My first thought was get traffic going around and go check on injuries as I got off my motor and approached everything that was going on. All I saw was arms inside this truck that was on fire. Got my baton and went up, and my first thought was to get her out of the truck, and just I wasn't going to stop beating that window until it finally broke. Then I turned and saw Asa in his turnout gear, and my first thought was like, he's got fire retardant gear. Dude, go.
Truck was on its side, and I saw it fall, and that's when I saw Amy kind of get thrown back in there. I had my turnouts because I worked a 10-hour shift the day before, and so luckily I had my turnouts in my trunk. So opened my trunk and put them on, and then helped Officer Larson, kind of pull her out of the truck. Thankfully it was right in time. He broke the window right on time, and we got her out, got her to safety.
I also was on my way to work. I'm usually never late to work, but this day I was oddly late. And, they say there's a reason for everything. And so as I'm on my motorcycle on my way to work, going down the 60, I see brake lights, and there was a bunch of cars stopping. And then next thing I see is fire. And I don't see red and blue, so I was a little scared because that means I'm the closest person to help.
I seriously can't believe it's already been a week since that accident. I still think about it every second of my day, but I also think about how lucky I am to be here to tell the story still, and I'm really grateful for everybody that stepped in, especially Officer Larson, Asa, and all the firefighters, ambulance, everybody that stood by my side during the whole thing. It's truly been life-changing, but I guess you could say in a weird way. But I'm so thankful to be here. I really would like to move on from the nightmare. I've got a long, long journey ahead of me of healing mentally and physically. But I'm ready. I'm ready to move on from this and just be stronger than I ever was, and
she was on the phone with him when it first happened.
Yeah.
And so what she couldn't share, he was sharing, and we're glad she's okay. I think I'm glad you shared some of the interviews from the first
Yeah.
responders who
Right?
were there.
Sure.
Yeah, because I think it sheds light on what they were going through.
Yeah.
And especially for the paramedic who said that he was even a little bit nervous when he didn't see any red and blue. He knew he was the first on scene.
Right.
And, not that we're proponents of being late to work, but I mean, he was in the right place at the right time.
In this case, he gets a pass.
That's right.
Well, like he said, everything happens for a reason.
Yes.
Speaking of that kind of a thing, boy, these pilots in this situation in Chicago, they were perfect for Southwest Airlines. They performed a go-around. You know the story by now. It was such a close call when that small private jet, that's a flex jet, we're now learning some new information, by the way. The tower is heard saying, they have the audio, FlexJet 560. Your instructions were to hold short of runway 31 center. There had been multiple warnings to that pilot to, quote, hold short.
Oh, no.
Happened once. 30 seconds later, they're watching it. Everybody's talking about, well, is it all a result of the cutbacks at the FAA? Well, no air traffic controllers were let go, not a one.
Nope, not one.
And so they're as staffed as they've ever been. It was professionally handled from the tower, but very questionable there on the ground from that small plane. How could that pilot have ever made that decision? 30 seconds after one warning of holding short, the tower again ordered the pilot. They had their eye on him. Hold your position there. And he didn't do it. And boy, is there going to be an investigation.
Did you see that touch and go, Ron? It
Yes.
might have been 1 second
Yes.
that those wheels had touched, if
Yes,
that. And
right?
then that pilot of that Southwest jet went right back up again.
Yeah, picture perfect. That's for
Wow.
sure. Hey, by the way, we are going to take a break. We do every morning right at 10:13. But a couple of things here. We're still talking about moms and everything they do. So we would love to hear from you moms in the chat box. What's the hardest part of being a mom? And what's the best part, the most rewarding part? Come join us in the chat box. Right now, here's the mystery cam. Ooh, that's pretty.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Wow. Okay, we'll be back in 2 minutes. And we're back with a look at the mystery cam of the day. Celeste,
Yes, Ron.
do you have any guesses?
I'm going to go in Oklahoma. I think.
Oh, really?
Just for fun.
Okay.
Yeah, well, there's no snow.
Right.
I don't know if there's snow in Oklahoma right
Right.
now or not,
Yeah.
but I think it's too far. It's too dry to be somewhere out to the east, maybe.
Okay.
You
All
know,
right.
what are you
Well,
thinking?
I'm looking at that industrial area over there to the right.
Okay, are you thinking like Oakland?
Well, I was going to go with Florida.
Oh, Texas?
Could be Texas. I'm just trying to think. Oakland does have. I guess I'm going to go with Texas.
Look at the baseball or the bleachers down at the bottom. I wonder if that's like a community college. Let's go ahead and check our chat box, Ron.
Sure.
And a quick mention on welcome to the stream, Rick Pratt.
Hello, Rick.
Hey, Rick. Rick's new to the stream. Jens Wall says, "Hey, Rick, are you from Michigan? I think I might know you."
Wow.
And Rick says, "I'm from Washington State, nearest to Spokane."
Oh my gosh. Okay, Rick, you have to tell us what town because I worked in Spokane before I moved to Phoenix, and my hometown is a little apple town called Wenatchee.
Yes.
So if you're in Moses Lake or Colville or Colfax, wherever you are, Rick, be sure to let us know. That's so cool. Glad you're joining.
We do have plenty of Floridas here.
All right.
Lisa Dinsmore, Louis Gonzalez, Sherry Nevada Pop. We also have a B. Miguel.
Yeah.
He says Virginia.
Okay.
Leo Max says Louisiana. And then we have a few others. Alabama's on there. Jens Wall, Lil Philosophy said maybe Alabama.
Yeah.
Chesapeake, Virginia. We have a lot of guesses this morning.
I really wanted to go Florida, but then you just don't see a lot of those industrial sites like that. So that's why I went
And
with
that bridge,
Texas.
right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, you ready for the
Here
answer?
she is, everybody.
Oh.
What do you got?
Lake Charles, Louisiana.
Oh, see, look at Oklahoma and Texas were very close.
Very close.
Right. But
No
that's
cigar.
still a no-winner situation.
But all of you who did say Louisiana, cheers to you
Yeah.
because plenty of you did. Kira D said Tulsa, so me and Kira were on the same
you were in
train.
Oklahoma. Hey, speaking of Texas, boy, it's a sad story, but it's not a shock, I don't think, because we've been watching this measles outbreak just continue to grow and grow in West Texas. And we just got word about 90 minutes ago that we have the first death reported. You know, measles can just be so serious.
Oh, yeah.
It comes out of Lubbock at Texas Tech with their Health Sciences Center. They just came out with the news. It was a patient who died just a few hours ago at the Covenant Children's Hospital. So we don't know if, excuse me, we don't know if it was a child or not. But, you know, it hasn't been as big in the headlines, Celeste, but that outbreak there, it can spread so fast. I read a stat that said if you're exposed to it, the odds are about 80 to 90% you're going to get it.
Right. And we had a doctor in this morning that talked about if you're maybe in your 30s, 40s, if you're 20s, you know, something like that, should you get revaccinated? He said, no, not at all. It's maybe if you're over 60 or 70 years old, you may want to double check with your doctor to make sure if you should get vaccinated or revaccinated. But, you know, it's pretty scary stuff. It's very contagious.
Yeah, it is. So it has ballooned in size now to 124 cases, and it's in a kind of a rural part of West Texas out there, a little ways away from El Paso. There are 9 cases in eastern New Mexico. The concern is really growing. And by the way, there have been a number of other states that have started to report measles cases. So, you know, it is something you really are going to want to keep an eye on. Arizona so far is not on that
And
list.
a quick question from Sherry Nevada Pup. Can you get measles more than once? I believe it's like getting the vaccine. The doctor we had in this morning, he said, once you receive the vaccine or you get measles for the first time, then you are about, he said, 95% protected, which is pretty high.
Yeah.
He said pretty high. So the chances of you getting measles again is very low.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the questions that I knew people were going to have this morning is that bill, the big, beautiful bill.
Yes.
One big, beautiful bill, as the
Wow,
president had
beautiful
been asking
bill.
for. I don't know if it's beautiful or not. It's probably loaded with stuff in it. But one of the questions people are wanting to know is, it passed the House last night. Did it include the no tax on tips and the no tax on IDs? So this is from Fox. The framework that passed last night is just a budget resolution. it's a sort of a guide on where you go from here.
Yes.
And the real question, that's what I think people can relate to. What about no tax on tips? What about no tax on OT? The president wants Republicans to approve the bill that would extend. That's one thing we should make clear. We're talking about extending the current tax policy.
Yes.
For the next several years. So somehow in the reporting, you just have to keep that in mind. What would be new would be if they, for example, put no tax on tips.
Well, and no tax on overtime, I think, is important too, Ron, because the overtime puts you in a different income bracket depending on for that pay period.
Right.
Depending on how much OT you do.
Mm-hmm.
And so if that's the case, then you're in a different income bracket and then you're taxed even higher when it defeats the purpose of doing all the OT anyways.
Yes.
And you're hurting people on Main Street in the pocketbook.
Okay. So it does go to the Senate next. And, now they got to hash it out with the House, and we'll find out a lot more. But the bottom line is they took a good hard look at it as to whether or not, they could even get it across the finish line because, they say it includes $4.5 trillion in tax cuts, but $2 trillion, I believe, in spending cuts. This is over 10 years.
All those zeros, Ron.
I know.
A trillion, billion.
Yeah.
What about a zillion?
Yeah, exactly. But it's interesting because it's our poll question this morning. Syleste, people really have opinions on this. Look at this. We're approaching 300 votes, which that's a big number for 20 minutes into the show here on Fox 10 Talks. 5% say, for me, it's no tax on tips. Almost 10% say, it's no tax on OT. And then 46% say both. Those both need to be in there because they were items that the president talked about when he was out there on the campaign trail. And we'll find out in the final version, but that's still many weeks away. But almost 40% are saying neither. We're $36 trillion in debt. Focus on that.
Yes.
So strong feelings. And a lot of votes.
And
a lot of votes in the poll.
Very
question.
strong feelings on whether or not you're a Coke, Pepsi, or Sprite drinker in the chat box right now, Ron.
Oh, really? Now, why is that, Syleste?
I'm not entirely sure how this started.
Okay.
But I'm a Diet Coke or a Coke Zero person.
Okay.
But there's some strong Pepsi lovers. And in fact, Sherry Nevada Pup says, I don't drink soda pop and never have my whole life.
Oh, wow.
I thought, wow, her whole life?
Okay. Well,
That's incredible. So
that's-
these are what inquiring minds want to know, Ron.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, for those of you who are just jumping in, inquiring minds, that's Syleste and me, by the way. We're inquiring.
We want to know.
But we also want your feedback on being a mom. Because we've got that story. We promised you we would bring it to you yesterday. But Syleste, did you also see, after all these restaurants came out, let's see, first was Denny's, then it was Waffle House and others who were saying, we're adding an egg surcharge. Did you see the one chain restaurant that came out and said, we're not going to do it. We're purposely not going to do it.
Okay, we all need to go there now.
Okay, it's Mickey D's.
Yeah, because they're not going to charge us anything more to feed the family.
Correct.
I love that.
Well, and as I mentioned, they've just rolled out here in Arizona, they've rolled out those steak, egg, and cheese bagels.
Right.
I mean, the very first weekend they were available, I was out there.
Okay, here's the question. If they're not going to raise the price on the egg and add that egg surcharge, is the price going up on other items?
Yes, we're going to charge double on the bagels.
To compensate for the eggs.
Right.
Yes.
Did you hear about our bagel surcharge?
I do have
No.
a comment, Ron.
Yeah.
Linda Monter says, you talked about being a mom.
Yeah.
Hardest part of being a mom, she says, and I completely agree with her 1,000%, taking care of sick or injured kids. Best part is grandkids. Now, I don't have grandkids
yes.
yet. I know you can chime in on that.
We've got 8.
Yeah, congratulations. So, but I do think when you're caring for your children and they're sick or injured, you would give anything to swap places with them.
That's so true.
Yeah.
And yet you're going to be burning the midnight oil, if they're not feeling good.
Right.
You're up with them half the night. By the way, they do say that moms, they start their work shift, if you want to call it that, at 6:30 in the morning when the first youngster wakes up. And generally, they don't clock out until about 8:30 that night. This is particularly if you have young ones.
Absolutely. And actually, I think the time switches. Like 6:30 seems late to me.
Oh, to get up in the morning?
Yeah.
Yeah. Your kids are up a lot earlier than
Yeah,
that?
my 5, and when they
Oh,
were young,
wow.
and sometimes they'd be up around 4:30, and then you'd
Okay.
have to, kind of tap their back to sleep.
Yeah, right.
And 8:30, like it depends on the age of your kids. You
Sounds
know what I
like you
mean?
need to institute a new rule. Nobody's getting up in this house before 6.
You all need to go to your rooms and don't come out.
Well, that's good. Early risers, the early bird gets the worm and all
That's
that kind of a
true.
thing. Okay, if you see any more comments, Celeste, on life as a mom, let us know,
Yes,
because
I will.
we appreciate you moms. We appreciate everybody who's watching. We get a lot of viewers from all over the country. I just went and checked yesterday. Canada,
Oh,
the UK.
Canada still loves us. Well, they won the second hockey game, so they
Right. Yeah, they're feeling strong.
I think so.
Yeah. But anyway, we sure appreciate you moms, and we did want to go back and revisit
Oh.
that story once more.
Ron, listen to Kim Wynette real quick, and I
Yeah.
know we got to move on.
Sure.
She said, hardest part about being a mom is having your adult child move from Arizona to New York City.
Oh boy, yeah.
Wow, it's a long way.
Yeah, it is really
Yeah,
tough.
I think they have Pace Picante out there, though.
In
that
New York City.
that
What?
ad, I know.
Hey, let's get to one last story here before we say our goodbyes, because Celeste,
Yes, Ron.
the new emotional support
Oh.
robots are being unveiled.
This is scary. Is this real?
This is almost like a real person. Look,
Oh, yeah.
look, he's hairspraying her. Oh, look, there goes the face.
Oh wow! Look at Oh wow! So
Okay.
so you just put a mask on every day.
Yeah, so AI developers say you can have a friend like this. She's a new bot. Her name is Melody.
Oh, look at the older one, Ron. Oh, the grandpa. There was a grandpa that
Oh,
popped
yeah,
up.
so it's age appropriate. I mean, do you want a grandpa to be hanging out with Melody, for goodness sakes?
I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, there's a company who says you can travel with her, and like Lego pieces, she comes apart. You can just pack her up and then reboot her the next day.
Oh
for
my
goodness
goodness.
sakes.
Well, at least she's not going to talk back. She's going to tell you exactly what you want to hear.
Yeah, I suppose. Wow. Okay, so just remember you heard that one here first. But Celeste, we've got to wrap it up.
We do. Thank you all for watching and hanging with us and chatting in the chat box.
Oh,
we
yeah.
love chatting with you.
Thank you to all of our brand new viewers today. Hope you'll
Yeah.
come back and join us tomorrow.
All right. Have a great day, everyone.